Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's council meeting. There is no motion to convene into closed, so we will move on to convening in open. The recommendation is that council convenes into open session at 7 p.m. May I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Dunstall, seconded by Councillor Wilkinson. And all those in favor? Great, so that motion carries, and we are now in open meeting. For this week's moment of reflection, December, as many of you know, starts the holiday season. Personally, I'll be celebrating Christmas surrounded by family and friends, but there are also other celebrations in December, many including Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and numerous others. On behalf of Council and the entire Wilmot community, whatever you are celebrating this holiday season, we hope it is filled with joy, hope, family, and energizes you for a happy and healthy new year. I will ask Councillor Wilkinson to please read the territorial acknowledgement.
We've gathered in Wilmot Township on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Mississauga peoples. We want to acknowledge the importance of the Dish with One Spoon Covenant, a peace agreement made between Indigenous nations before the Europeans arrived. It characterizes our collective responsibility to each other and Mother Earth. We should take only what we need, leave enough for others, and keep the dish clean. By acknowledging this covenant and the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, we are reminded of our important connection to this land where we live, learn, and work together as a community.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilkinson. There are no additions to the agenda, so we'll move on to the adoption of the agenda, the recommendation being that the agenda as presented for December 12th, 2022 be adopted. May I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Cressman, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? And that motion carries. Now on, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict Act? Councillor Martin?
Yes, I'm a board member of the Wilmot Family Resource Center, and so for the bylaw motion that's coming up, I need to declare that pecuniary interest.
Thank you.
And Councillor Wilkinson?
Through you, Mayor Salonen, I have an indirect pecuniary interest on report 12.2 regarding the affiliation policy. My wife is a board member of one of the benefiting groups.
Thank you very much. All right, minutes from the previous meeting. The recommendation is that the minutes from the following meetings be adopted as presented. December 5th, 2022 regular council meeting. May I have a seconder? A mover. Wow. Moved by Councillor Dunstall, seconded by Councillor Cressman. Does anybody have any comments about the minutes before we move to a vote? Okay, all those in favor? And that is passed. There are no public meetings for this evening, nor are there any presentations. The consent agenda, the recommendation is that the items for the consent agenda 11.1 be approved. May I please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Sadhu, seconded by Councillor Cressman. Any comments or questions before we move along? Councillor Cressman?
Just through you, Mayor, if one of these properties have been sold since the original
through you, Mayor, my understanding is that the cost would stay with the property.
Thank you very much. And to a vote, all those in favor? Perfect. The consent agenda has been carried. Now we will move into reports. 12.1 report on the approval for ice resurfacing. As councillors recall, we previously discussed this in our budget committee meeting this afternoon. The recommendation is that, as recommended by the ad hoc budget advisory committee under report PFRS 2022-34, pre-budget approval be authorized to incorporate $375,000 plus applicable taxes in the 2023 and 2024 capital budgets for the replacement of the 2 ice resurfacers at the Wilmot Recreation Complex, and further, that the contract for the supply and delivery of 2 electric ice resurfacers be awarded to Zamboni Company Limited by means of the Canoe Procurement Group of Canada. Before we have any questions, can we get this on the floor with a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Sadhu, and a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Wilkinson. Are there any questions for Council regarding this? Nope. Oh, sorry, Councillor Dunstall.
Yeah, I think we should give serious consideration to the savings by looking further into the propane, or are we past that point now?
So, did somebody over there? Okay. I can quickly answer that in that we aren't past the point because that was at committee this afternoon, but I will turn it over to Sandy for comment.
Through the chair, doing some quick math calculations, the upfront cost of the electric Zambonis is higher by about $55,000 as referenced by Mr. Dubrick when he was here. However, the ongoing costs of propane and maintenance for oil changes and all of the other ancillary things that are required, that would be recovered probably within about 5 years of owning the electric versus the propane. The other benefit of electric is that the staff are no longer required to handle dangerous gas. We already have ammonia at that plant, so not having to handle propane would be ideal from a health and safety perspective. And just generally, I think the cost will balance itself out over the term of having that electric unit, and will save us the funds that are required to run those fans when we're venting the gas as well. So it'll probably be even quicker than that kind of a turnaround at the end of the day.
Thanks, Sandy.
Any additional questions from Council? Okay. Now voting, all those in favor? Okay, that report carries. On to 12.2 report, and a reminder that this is the one that Councillor Wilkinson has declared a pecuniary interest and will not be participating.
Excuse me, Mayor Sullivan, I really should have declared the pecuniary interest on this one as well as the bylaw, so the affiliation policy and the bylaw, both for the same reason.
That's great. Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. So both Councillor Wilkinson and Councillor Martin will be excused from the conversation, but as this is an open meeting, you're both welcome to stay. So this report was discussed during the Budget Committee meeting, and the recommendation reads that, as recommended by the Ad Hoc Budget Advisory Committee under the report PFRS 2022-43, Council approved the Community Services Department affiliation policy, and further, that the historical discounts uses of township facilities be grandfathered for a minimum of 1 calendar year from the implementation date, and further, that the historical discounts to the community players be continued until such time that an anchor tenancy agreement is brought to Council for approval, and that staff be directed to implement the Council-approved affiliation policy effective April 1st of 2023. To get this on the floor, may I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Cressman. May I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Dunstall. Any questions? Comments? Okay, so all those in favor? And that has been carried. We have no correspondence this evening. Moving into bylaws, please note that bylaw 14.1, being a consolidated bylaw to provide for fees and charges of the Township of Wilmot, and 14.2, being a bylaw to establish water and sanitary fees and charges to users of the Township of Wilmot's water distribution system and sanitary collection system, were discussed and approved by the Ad Hoc Budget Advisory Committee at their meeting on December 12th, earlier today. The recommendation is that the bylaw 14.1, being a consolidated bylaw to provide fees and charges for the Township of Wilmot as attached to this agenda, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed in open council to this date. May I please have a mover for this? Moved by Councillor Sadhu. May I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Cressman. All those in favor? Okay, and motion carries. And That bylaw, the second recommendation is that bylaw 14.2, being a bylaw to establish water and sanitary fees and charges to users of the Township of Wilmot's water distribution system and sanitary collection system as attached to this agenda, be read for a first, second, and third time and finally passed in open council this date. May I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Wilkinson, seconder, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? And that passes. And lastly, that the bylaw 14.3, being a bylaw to amend the trust fund law 2016-44 of the Township of Wilmot as attached to this agenda, be read for first, second, and third time and finally passed in open council this date. May I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Martin. May I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Dunstall. All those in favor? And that motion carries. There are no notices of motion this evening. For announcements, I'd like to go over to Councillor Sadhu, please.
I'd just like to announce on New Year's Eve, the Baden Community Association will be holding a party at EJ's. BCA is a grassroots organization that was founded by our former councillor, Barry Fisher. It is from 4 to 8 o'clock. Tickets can be purchased through the Baden Community Association, or you can come to myself or Councillor Wilkinson. With the ticket, you'll be provided food and entertainment for the evening.
Thank you. You sounded so excited about it. Are there any other announcements for this evening?
There will be pizza.
Okay. Any other announcements for this evening? Okay. There was no closed session, so there's no business arising from. So we will jump into the confirmatory bylaw, which recommends that the confirmatory bylaw, as attached to this agenda, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed in open council. May I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Wilkinson. May I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Martin. And all those in favor? And that motion carries. Now lastly, on to the adjournment. And the recommendation is that we now adjourn to meet again at the call of the mayor. May I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Dunstall. May I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Cressman. All those in favor? And we are now adjourned. Thank you.